A bouncer is working on a Saturday night at a popular nightclub for household utensils. One of the regulars, a mirror, comes outside for a smoke and greets him. As they make small talk, a toilet approaches, flaunting a pristine gold-plated lid. The bouncer immediately lets him in. The mirror rolls his eyes as the toilet pushes through. Next, a limo pulls up, and a washing machine steps out adorned in shining jewelry. She heads towards the door, and the bouncer lets her in without question. The mirror scoffs and stares in utter contempt as the washing machine enters. A short time later, a dingy-looking sink trudges towards the door. He looked worn out and had a large crack down the front of his bowl. The bouncer stops him and says, "Not tonight, buddy." The sink pleads to be let in, but the bouncer scolds him for not even attempting to follow the dress code and again refuses entry. Dejected, the sink steps away, unsure of what to do with his night now. The mirror takes a pull on his cigarette, turns to the bouncer and says, "You need to take a long, hard look at yourself." "What do you mean?" replies the bouncer, taken aback. "That toilet you let in, he's a big-shot lawyer at a multinational corporation. Made his fortune all over the little guy and only looking out for the one." The mirror continued. "The washing machine. She launders money for the cartel." The bouncer shuffles uncomfortably. The mirror takes another drag of his cigarette. "But whatever, I don't even mind that you let those guys in. My gripe is about the guy you left out," said the mirror. "Hey, what do you want me to do about that?" defended the bouncer. "He was a mess." "That mess," the mirror imitated in a sarcastic tone. "Served 10 years active duty in the Army. Got that crack taking a bullet for you and your country. Now needs to collect disability to survive, and you just turned him away like he was nothing. You let in those horrible people who make yours and everybody else's lives worse, but turned away the one guy who gave everything he had for the greater good." The bouncer felt a huge pang of guilt. The mirror threw his cigarette to the ground, gave the bouncer a stern gaze, and said, "Let that sink in." 2. A man walking his dog comes across an old man sitting on a park bench sobbing. He walks up to him out of concern and says, "Is everything okay?" The old man says, "Well, not really." "What's wrong?" says the man. "Well, a couple of weeks ago, I married this 30-year-old exotic dancer. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Every morning, she wakes me up with a cup of tea and a job, then she cooks me a fantastic breakfast." "Well, that doesn't sound so bad," says the man. "What are you upset about?" "Well, I lay in bed and watch the TV, read the paper and pick some horses, and then she goes down the bookie to put my bets on while I shower and go downstairs. Then she cooks me a fabulous lunch, and after that we have in all these amazing positions that I'd never even imagined before." "But I don't understand," says the man. "Why are you upset?" The old man continues, "Well, I watch a bit of telly in the afternoon, and then she cooks me an amazing dinner. Then we make love again all evening until I doze off." "Oh, come on," says the man. "How can you be upset about that?" The old man looks at him and says, "I can't remember where I live." 3. There were 2 old people in a care home, a man and a woman. Every evening, they'd sit down next to each other to watch the telly. They weren't married or anything. They just sat down and watched the telly, while the old gal gave the old man a They'd been doing this every day for years, until suddenly, one evening, the old man didn't sit next to her. To her shock, he'd sat down next to someone else, a new woman, who recently came to the care home. At first, she thought maybe it would be a one-time thing. However, every night the old man would sit with this new girl instead. Finally, the old gal couldn't take it anymore and went to the old man. What does she have that I don't? The old man looked up and replied, Parkinson's. 4. 80,000 blondes meet in a football stadium for a Blondes Are Not Stupid convention. The leader says, "We are all here today to prove to the world that blondes are not stupid. Can I have a volunteer?" A blonde gingerly works her way through the crowd and steps up to the stage. The leader asks her, "What is 15 plus 15? After 15 or 20 seconds, she says, 18. Obviously, everyone is a little disappointed. Then 80,000 blondes start cheering, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" The leader says, "Well, since we've gone to the trouble of getting 80,000 of you in one place, and we have the worldwide press and global broadcast media here, I guess we can give her another chance." So he asks, "What is 5 plus 5? After nearly 30 seconds, she eventually says, 90. The leader is quite perplexed, looks down, and just lets out a dejected sigh. Everyone is disheartened. The blonde starts crying, and the 80,000 girls begin to yell and wave their hands, shouting, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" The leader, unsure whether or not he is doing more harm than good, eventually says, Okay, just one more chance. What is 2 plus 2? The girl closes her eyes and, after a whole minute, eventually says, 4? Throughout the stadium, pandemonium breaks out as all 80,000 girls jump to their feet, wave their arms, stomp their feet, and scream, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" 5. As a teenager, I had a summer job pumping gas. One week, an older guy drove up and said he wanted a fill-up. Then he got out of the car with an umbrella, opened it, and followed me around as I worked, holding the umbrella over my head to keep the sun off me. I awkwardly thanked him as he paid his tab and drove away. A week later, he came back for a fill-up. Again, he got out of the car with the umbrella and opened it, but this time he just stood there watching me work. I asked, "So, you're not going to use that to keep the sun off me this time?" And he retorted, "Watch it, young man. Fuel me once, shade on you. Fuel me twice, shade on me." 6. A man in ancient Rome cannibalizes his wife and frames his neighbor. Ridiculous. Ridiculous goes to court and says, "I'm innocent. You have a got to believe in me." Ancient Romans sounded like Italians, in case you didn't know. They sentence him to fight in the Colosseum. It turns out he is quite good at fighting. In no time, he becomes the best, and he makes a great friend along the way. One evening, after another day of tough fighting, his friend says, "Don't you wish, with all of your fighting skills, you could have your neighbor in front of you now? Wouldn't you want to cut him right in half?" Ridiculous says, "I used to be furious about it, but now I'm glad he ate her." 7. One day, 2 deputies in the sheriff's office answered an emergency call at a farmhouse. When they walked in, they found the bodies of a man and a woman in the bedroom. They had been shot to death. When they went to the living room, they found the body of a man with a gun at his side. "No doubt about it," one deputy said to the other. "This was a double murder and suicide, and this guy came home and found his wife in bed with somebody else and shot them both. Then he shot himself." "You're right," the other deputy replied. "But I'll bet you when the sheriff gets here, he's gonna say it could have been worse." "No way. How could it be worse? There are 3 people in the house, and all of them have been shot to death. It couldn't be worse. You're on." About that time, the old sheriff arrived at the scene. He walked into the bedroom and saw the 2 bodies. He then walked into the living room and saw the man on the floor with the gun by his side. "No doubt about it," the sheriff said, shaking his head. "It was a double murder and suicide. This guy came home and found his wife in bed with somebody else and shot them both. Then he shot himself." After hesitating for a moment, the old sheriff looked his deputies squarely in the eyes. "But you know," he said, "it could have been worse." The deputy who had lost the bet jumped up and shouted, "Sheriff, how could it have been worse? There are 3 people in this farmhouse, and all 3 of them are dead. It couldn't have been worse." "Yes, it could," the sheriff retorted. "You see that guy there on the floor? If he had come home yesterday, that would be me in that bed."